Welcome to another Fun Fair Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Keena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kayla McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kayla on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can catch up on the other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So you haven't to miss them. You can watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please find us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. And while you're at it, please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media. Once again, that's at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools the beer lamp beer beat.
Toodles!
But before we begin, we must remind you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, maybe a BlackBerry, those still exist, but your personal PC or your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just head over to that Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
We will try to provide for you today. Sorry for all the technical issues, folks. We're getting things going here. We're going to talk some Bears and some NFL. Then we'll have we'll talk Cubs, Sox, Cubs, itching closer in the NL Central and in the wild card. Also, too, the Sox are making some changes, or are they? And I know Sid's got some lists, especially some big college football news. We got Week 0 coming up, starting tonight. So we're gonna talk about that for you. And
shout out to our guy Vernon. Vernon. Welcome back, Vernon. We see the comment. We'll definitely get to them.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second, Vernon. So hang tight. But so of course we got a lot to do. But let's get right to it and talk some Bears as the Bears finish up training camp. They're going to be gearing up for their last preseason game. And, starting tomorrow against Buffalo, there's going to be some, it's going to be a good limits test because it looks like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and the rest of that Buffalo offense will play a little bit tomorrow. And I know Justin Fields and the rest of the game will be playing tomorrow as well. But injury seems to be mounting up for the Bears. We know that Tevin James is going to be out for a few weeks, and we got some other injuries, some various guys. I know Cole Kmet just came back. Just came back to practice yesterday. So yes, it's a little like there have been a lot of close to the vest stuff when it comes to the Bears injuries. So Sid, what do you think? I mean, I kind of feel like I'm not saying that they should be tell us everything, but at the same time, I don't want it to be like hockey where you're like, oh, this guy has a lower body injury or an upper body injury or whatever. So what do you think?
For those on offense and defense, the ones who are healthy enough to play, you should play them because this is what it's all about. Because we know that the starters sat out last week. All of them sat out last week in their second preseason game in Indianapolis. But the ones that are healthy enough to play tomorrow, they should play tomorrow. It all starts out with that offense and Justin Fields and the rest of his teammates because, as we said the last couple of shows, this offense needs to get their timing and rhythm down because there's only so much that you could do in practice, but you need to start getting these reps in against other teams because that's what the season is about, is to to improve the team, improve your win total, and all the way you do that is to get your time and your chemistry down against other players on other teams, obviously, because you can only do so much in a controlled environment. The only thing that tells the test of time is to try out your schemes against different opponents, and that's what this tomorrow's game is all about for the Bears. Now, breaking the game down just a little bit, even though it's the preseason finale for this offense, like I said, I want to see timing from Justin Fields with the wide receivers. On defense, I want to see how can they contain Josh Allen in the pocket. Like you said, I think he's only going to play a series or two, even if it's a quarter. I want to see how this Bears defense, which has been magnificent so far in this preseason, I want to see how they contain him, a mobile quarterback like Allen in the pocket, and how they have the coverages with the likes of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis on the outside. And number 3, I would like to see Tyreek Stevenson, the second-round pick, a defensive back out of Miami. He had a rough game last week. Yes, he's a rookie, but I want to see how quickly he learns and how he bounces back. Those are the 3 things I'm watching for tomorrow's preseason finale.
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I mean, you got guys like Eddie Jackson, who we'll see if he plays tomorrow. Same thing with Jaquan Brisker; he's questionable. I know Tremaine Evans. I know he practiced, I think, a couple of days ago, but he's still a bit questionable too. Yannick Ngakoue, who they just brought up. I mean, we haven't seen him practice much, so I'm trying to figure like, okay, what's going on there? So like the injuries are starting to kind of concern me a little bit. I want to see how this defense goes against like a Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs. And again, we probably may not see a lot of them. They may not show a lot of stuff. So I'm not gonna make any predictions as to however they perform. So for me, I think that's gonna be the key for that defense. As far as the offense is concerned, I would like to see Justin Fields high up against it, because that Buffalo defense, I know they lost Edmonds, of course, to the Bears and a few other guys, and Von Miller is still out, going to be out, I guess, for the first few weeks of the season. That's still a pretty solid defense. So I'm thinking of how Fields is going to react, especially with the O-line, going back and forth and whatnot. So that's going to be the key here for me. And look, I know that the week 3 of the preseason, you're probably going to see a lot more, guys that are probably going to be fighting for a spot in camp. On the practice squad or even on the team. So I'm not going to be too concerned either way. So for me, this is just to see, okay, who's that guy's going to be on the back end of the rotation. That's going to be the issue for me.
Yeah, just like you said, these are for the last, I'm just rounding off a number. This is going to be the last chance that 10 guys will be vying for 2 or 3 spots. I'm just giving a round off number, but this is the last chance for those guys that are fighting for those few spots that are left, both offensively and defensively. And one of those guys is Travis Gensler. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, in that preseason opener against the Tennessee Titans. He came out like a madman because he was ranked number 3 or number 4 on the depth chart as far as defensive linemen is concerned for pass rushers. He needed to prove that he wanted to be on this team. He had, I believe, 9.5 sacks a couple of years ago. He disappeared the last couple of years, but so far early in the preseason, he's shown up. I want to see him do that again. His football life could be on the line tomorrow. So, like I said, there's also other guys that's fighting for jobs as well. Velus Jones Jr., he hasn't had a good preseason so far. And I know he was a high second-round pick last year. I know he has speed, but my man, you got to catch the ball. You got to field the punt correctly. You know what I mean? So, you got to work on those hands. So I want to see what he does as well tomorrow if and when head coach Matt Eberflus gives him the opportunity to do so.
Just see what happens with that. As I can see Sports of Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we preview a little bit the last week of the preseason, also too with the training camp going to be closed up this weekend in a lot of places around the country. Injuries are okay. I'll start with this because the 49ers have named Sam Darnold the number 2 guy. Trey Lance, that's going to leave him out in the cold. Will the 49ers trade him? Will they keep him as insurance? What do you think they're going to do?
I think the 49ers are in a good spot. Here's why I say that is because Brock Purdy is still working his way back from that injury from last year, okay? And let's just say something goes wrong with him. And the 49ers do not trade Trey Lance. They're in perfect position. Remember this around this time last year, Lakina? Trey Lance gets hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo, they didn't trade him. Who stepped in? Jimmy Garoppolo. And then Garoppolo got hurt. Here comes Brock Purdy, your third-string quarterback, of course. They took the playbook out of his hands and off the 49ers win. So the 49ers are still in a good position. On the flip side, we all know that quarterbacks tend to go down, even though we're nearing the end of training camp. If somebody goes down, assuming Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold both stay healthy, if another quarterback goes down from around the league, the 49ers are in the perfect position to trade Trey Lance because teams are desperate to get top-notch quarterbacks. I'm not saying Trey Lance is a top-notch quarterback, but you can get a serviceable quarterback who's above average for a decent price should that situation come up.
I think the thing for me with the 49ers is that you want to keep them. I know that's not I know for whatever reason the last few years they thought, oh well, let's just only keep 2 QBs and just leave no, because we saw what happened in the NFC Championship. I'm sure they will. I know Trey Lance was hurt, but I'm sure they would love to have had an extra QB there, to take happen. So if I were Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, I would probably say, okay, look, if Purdy has a setback, if Sam Darnold, we see the Sam Darnold we saw the last couple of years when he was with the Jets, or even when he was with Carolina last year. So I think I would keep him, keep Lance just for insurance purposes, if nothing else, to see if something does happen. So I think for me, I think that's going to be the key. So we'll see what they do. I think they're in a really good spot. So I think either way, I think they'll probably be okay either way. Now Jerry Jeudy for the Broncos. The Broncos have had a pretty tough camp. He's going to be out several weeks at least with a hamstring. He had to be carted off yesterday. So it's been a pretty tough go for the Broncos. And I feel like I know Sean Payne. I know what his comments. We saw her we had last year, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But yeah, I'm kind of like in that realm of, oh dear, like this could. I'm not saying it's going to be bad for the Broncos, but I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's going to be a definite setback for the Broncos. Jerry Jeudy has had a couple of bad injuries over the last 2 out of the last 3 years. So, we wish that young man the best in a speedy recovery wherever that injury is. But Russell Wilson was asked to change his diet and lose some weight. He's lost 15 pounds this offseason. And number 2, he has to get used to working on a new system under a new head coach in Sean Payton. So that's going to take some time already. Now it's going to take even more time without one of his main targets. And it's going to be important for Denver to get off to a good start. Yes. Would you like to have all healthy bodies available? Yes, but we all know sometimes that's not going to happen. So I think Russell Wilson is still going to have a good year, but he's got to do it without one of his top targets. I think Sean Payton will have this team much better because we all know we won't have to go through it again. That Broncos team was discombobulated all over the place last year, including Russell Wilson. If you believe that story from Athletic from earlier this offseason, what he did or didn't do with that team last year. So I think the Broncos are still in a good place. They're in a tough place right now, but I think still in a good place to have a good year.
And I think they'll probably be okay. I don't know if they'll be ready to vie for one of the AFC wildcard spots, but I think they will be a fit for some teams. They got a pretty solid defense. We know how the offense is. They got KJ Hamlin, so I know he's been banged up too. So we'll see how he performs on this new offense. So we'll just see what happens with that. Of course, some of the other news real quick. We're not gonna go through the games because the games really don't mean that much. But right. I mean, look, Cooper Kupp, says he'll be ready for week 1. Jamal Adams, he's off the pup list and he'll ease himself back. CJ Stroud, he could be the QB. I mean, but DeMeco Ryans head coach wants to keep it close to the vest, so he'll probably start that last preseason game coming up. And the Cardinals add veteran Josh Dobbs to their QB roster there. So of course we know Kyler Murray is still going to be out for probably half the season with that cover for ACL surgery. So there was another and Dorian Thompson-Robertson. Speaking of the Browns, he'll be the number 2 QB behind Mr. Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I told you he has that Cordell Stewart type talent. We saw what he did in the preseason. He was vying, like you said, for that number 2 spot. He secured it, so congratulations to him. I think that head coach of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, is going to use him in more ways than one. Like as I could use him in a Cordell Stewart type set for. I don't think Robertson can punt, but outside of special teams, you could use it like a Deebo Samuel type, or you use it in a wildcat type formation. So that young man's going to be used in a lot of different ways in that offense. Now, I know we run up against it, Lakina, but a couple more notes. My guy, I say, is Simmons that was drafted, that linebacker at LSU. He was traded to the Giants. So I think the Giants linebacker core got a little bit better. Could that solidify them playoff spot for back-to-back years? We'll see coming up when we do our NFL picks in a couple of weeks. But also, too, on the flip side for the Jets, across the river. Aaron Rodgers is supposed to start in that preseason finale tomorrow night. It was supposed to happen last week against Tampa Bay, but that didn't happen. But we'll see if Aaron Rodgers plays in the preseason finale tomorrow night. And Baker Mayfield is now your starter, which is not a shock. He's your starting QB for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How long will that last is up to Baker.
Yeah, that's good. Really going to be his performance. We're really going to see. Of course, we're going to see Kyle Trask probably sooner than later. So we'll see what happens.
And they play the Bears, I believe, in week 2.
Yeah, so that's good. That's probably going to be a test for him. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. So we're going to take a really quick break. We're going to talk, go to the diamond and talk some baseball. Now the Cubs, it's so close. They get an important win last night. Now the Sox are cleaning house, or maybe not. Well, I'm sure still have some thoughts on that. And of course, the rest of baseball, a whole lot more. So Diamond Talk coming up next. Akina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. A little baseball talk coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Fun Friday Fun edition. We're live in Living Color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Akina McGee on the Twitter, X and Akina over again, the IG.
We have less than 80 minutes left or so. Next, at Extravaganza, we call it a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. The best ones and the most thoughtful ones, will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so let's talk some baseball. And we'll switch gears here and talk, top the South side first. They lose to Oakland 8-5 yesterday, last night.
Shocking.
But I guess the big news is off the field as both Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn have both were given the boot, but do you think that maybe the Sox are cleaning house? Not so fast. Apparently, according to Bob Nightingale, that Chris Getz will probably end up getting I guess what Ken Williams' old job, and Dalton, I think his name is Dalton Moore, the GM for the Royals. They did go to a couple of World Series during his tenure. They did, have guys like Eric Hosmer, Salvador Perez, and guys like that. So wouldn't be too big of a stretch, but I guess Mike Rizzo, that was a name that's being floated around now. John Morrissey from Fox Sports, one of their baseball insiders. He said that Mike Rizzo, who's the Nats GM, he is a Chicago guy, could perhaps maybe return home. But Bob Nightingale was reporting about an hour ago that he is staying put. And apparently, I guess they're going to give him a nice little raise. So I'm thinking the whole talk was probably leverage, I guess. So, Sid, what do you think? You're the Sox fan out of the two of us, so I'll let you take the floor on this.
As the great Wesley Snipes, a.k.a. Nino Brown, said in the movie New Jack City, and one of my personal favorite rappers of all time, Kumo D, once said, money talks, BS walks. That's what happened with GM Mike Rizzo. That's why he's staying put with the Washington Nationals. Now, back to the South side. When I heard the news that Kenny Williams, this is right, it was interesting right before, an hour before Tuesday night's game against Seattle. But when I heard the news that both Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn got the X, first of all, I was shocked. And number two, this was really happening. As a fan, I was happy for about 24, 40 hours or two. We got the Chris Getz news. Lakina, what did I tell you on Tuesday via text? I said, usually the Sox don't make moves like this during the season. That's why the whole thing with La Russa and his health and then move him out last year was such a shock. But what did I tell you the other night when that news came down with Williams and Hahn? Organizations don't do moves like this in season, especially late in the season like this unless they have a guy. And you said...
Yes, I did. I said Chris Getz, and you looked at me and you said, "No, those are your exact quote." That's what he told. I
was speaking as a fan.
Yeah, he said, "No." I'm like, "Look, you don't do this with about 7 weeks left in the season unless you already got somebody waiting in the wings," and that's exactly what the case is. Now, of course, they're going to do. I guess some reports they're going to do excessive search, but Bob Nightingale's usually at the forefront of this when it comes to Sox news. He was the first one to break the Tony La Russa being the manager again news a few years ago. He actually is going to be has been hired as a consultant. Take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm lobbying for our buddy Jordan Lazowski. He's one of the smartest baseball guys that we know. So I probably would say that it'll never happen. But Jordan, love you. We'll try to get you back on at some point, probably during the off season. But it just seems like you thought that maybe that they're going to clean house and maybe change will be abound. But in this case, that's not true. So I'm just like I really have no words for this, but I'm not really shocked. I mean, we've heard all the stuff that come out that guys have kind of given up and whatever and. You saw what happened last night, even though Luis Robert, I think, hit like a couple of home runs in that game that first game against the A's, but it wasn't enough. So I'm at that point where I'm kind of like, let's just end the season. Just, let's just, please. The end of the season can't come soon enough. But in this case here, I just feel like, okay, a lot will change, but not really, if that makes sense.
Yeah, first of all, I'm shocked. I was still, like I said in the beginning on Tuesday, I was shocked by this news because usually the Sox don't do this. And it looks like Ryan Surf had enough. He's been meeting with people, with his advisors over the last couple of weeks, and he finally came to his senses that those two needed to go. Now, those two needed to go a long time ago. And our girl Christine Manica from KXRB, who joins us periodically, and she said they need to get the boot. I'm just paraphrasing. They needed to get the boot as of last year, and we said it too, but it just wasn't going to happen. Oh, of course, it didn't. They waited a year too late, but it's an exciting time for a new beginning. Like I say, if Chris ends up the guy, we'll see what happens, because if you don't do this unless it's a full teardown, is coming, Lakina, of some sorts. Now, I don't think that Luis Robert is going to get traded. I don't even know if Dylan Cease is going to get traded, but we'll see what happens. But for those folks that are employed in the front office there on the South side, they're on notice right now, Lakina, because we know, not just in our business, not just in sports, but in life, in our 9-to-5 jobs, and in all other industries. When new people come in, they want their own people, and they have their own ideas. So whoever is employed with the Sox right now, they're on hands and knees right now, praying to keep a job.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of one of those things where you wonder, like, okay, how much if Chris gets and Dayton Moore, of course, how much power are they going to have if it doesn't end up being them, and whatnot. So I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, will we see like a Robert or a Cease, getting traded? I mean, who knows? But I think at this point, I think, look, if you're a Sox fan, you gotta wonder, like, what the heck is going on here, and is it really going to be sort of the same old? I know when Moore has been with the Royals for, I think, about 15 years. I know that they got the World Series 1-1. Of course, they've got various guys, like Eric Hosmer and Salvador Perez. But you wonder, like, we know that Ryan sort of doesn't like to spend, so you're wondering, okay, are they going to open it? He's going to open the checkbook and whatnot. So I think for me, I don't want to spend too much time on cop-out because they don't deserve it. But I kind of feel like I'm at the point where I'm kind of like, okay, you clean house. Even though the reports are true that Rick Hahn wanted to leave last year, actually wanted to leave multiple times earlier this year, but Ryan sort of told him no. So I don't know what's going on, if there is truth to that, but it's just like, what the hell is going on over there on the South Side? But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, just to wrap up, it was a power struggle between Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn. And we saw that. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago with that Jake Berger trade. Hahn didn't want to do it. Kenny Williams did it behind his back, and you saw what happened. Now, that report that you mentioned about Lakina, that was true. Rick Hahn wanted to quit after the Tony La Russa hire. We all saw that famous Zoom press conference when they introduced La Russa as the new manager a couple of years ago. He looked like someone had shot his dog. Excuse my interpretation, but he looked lost, of course, when they hired Pedro Grifol during last offseason. He was happy, because he thought he finally, quote unquote, got his guy. But it was a lot of dysfunction at the front office. We talk about the players. Yes, they're held to a different standard, and they're the ones that they had to pay for it at the end of the day, because it comes down to them performing and representing themselves in the organization, but on and off the field. But we all know that it starts at the top. And Williams and Hahn, we all thought they were going to have their jobs for life, but Mr. Reinsdorf put an end into that. So we'll see what happens. It can only go up from here, right, Lakina? Hopefully they cannot screw this up and real quick. I don't want to be that pessimistic guy, but remember when Dave Wannstedt got the boot after the 1998 season for the Bears, and then Michael McCaskey made it, so rest in peace, but he screwed up the initial hiring of Dave McGinnis. Of course, he left him at O'Hare Airport crying because there was some stuff that wasn't put in his contract for him and his assistants at the last minute. Of course, that's how Dick DeJour ended up getting a job for the 1999 season. Hopefully that doesn't happen for the Southsiders, because the White Sox fans deserve much better than that.
We'll see. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot's going to happen between now. Might be even more stuff kind of between now and when the off season starts. So we'll see what happens with that. But now to some happier news, on the north side.
He's hit lefties as well as he's hit righties. Line drive out towards left center field, sinking and falling for a hit. Nico around third, and he's in to score. Bellinger delivers with 2 outs, and he continues to pitch to Nico. Line drive, base hit, right field. Nico Horner, RBI single. In to score is Jan Gold. Chance to be a hero. Fly ball out towards right center field, falling, it falls for a hit. Racing home is Tuchman. On his heels is Swanson, and Dansby dives across. Happened to second, and here in the 10th, it's 5-3. The Cubs.
And those highlights are from the Marquee Network from last night. Of course, as you guys saw, Ian Happ's go ahead RBI helps the Cubs, pull away from the Pirates, 5-4 in 10 innings, and it's interesting because look, they were it was sort of back and forth, and we know that the Cubs have actually been pretty good against the Pirates this year. So I think for me, this was definitely something that the Cubs really needed this win. I feel like, and they scored 2 in the 10th, and whatnot. So for me, I think this is a big win for them, and we'll see what happens. So what do you think about the week? They won 2 out of 3 in Detroit, so they got a little bit of a cushion there. So what did you think?
Well, it's a pretty much an interesting performance last night from the offense. As we said before, we'll say it again. If this Cubs pitching staff gets support from the offense, if the offense scores between 4 and 6 runs a game, they should win the majority of their games. Now, Justice Steele pitched not a great game, but a good enough game last night. 3 sixes, Lakina. You ready? 6 in the third inning, 6 hits, and 6 strikeouts. 6 innings, even, I should say, with 6 strikeouts, giving up 6 hits. He didn't pitch bad, but as you said before, even though the Pirates are down, they're 14 games under 500. They always play the Cubs tough for some reason, but the Cubs dug down deep and got the first of 4 wins in that series last night. I'm encouraged that Nico Horner is starting to hit now. Ian Happ is starting to come alive, as we said before. Both of them can bring it defensively, but both those guys came through last night with big hits. Dansby Swanson, I know he was 0 for 4, but, he's been swinging a hot bat lately. Seiya Suzuki's starting to come more, even though he barely got 1 hit last night. Yan Gomes, who's I think is the starting catcher now, he was 2 for 5 last night. So you started to see guys contributing offensively, the no-name guys that you typically not supposed to hear from. But those the main guys like Cody Bellinger and Suzuki are leading the charge. But sometimes it's those no names that you don't hear from. They're starting to contribute as well. Let's not forget about Mike Topman as well. I know he didn't play last night, but he came in. He did play last night. Excuse me. Yes, he went 1 for 4. 1 for 4. Check that. But it's those guys that they need to sometimes need to pick it up when your big stars are not having good games.
And I think that's what you want if you're the Cubs. I mean, if Bellinger is 0 for 4 last night, like you said, but he had guys like Ian Happ, guys like Topman, step up, and still didn't have his best. That's probably the worst pitching performance he's had. I think in the last 2-3 months. So he was actually due for a not so good performance, but they were able to pull it out, and that's what you want. Win 3 out of 4 against Pittsburgh. You got a big series, coming up next week, and against Milwaukee. We'll get to them in a second. Thanks for nothing, Minnesota, for the help. But back to this for a second. But I mean, I kind of feel like, look, this is what you want. You want the guys kind of step up when they have off games or whatever. So I'm glad they won. I'm glad they pull it off. Just win 2 of the next 3, 2 of the last 3 in Pittsburgh, and kind of try to maybe gain a game, and set up for that big series coming up against Milwaukee starting Monday.
Yeah, the pitching match advantage for the Cubs looks great for them for the rest of this series. Kyle Hendricks will go tonight. And, of course, tomorrow's game will be on Fox. We'll give you the rest of the schedule in just a moment. Tomorrow's matchup will feature Javier Assad, who they moved from the bullpen to the starting rotation. He's filling in for Marcus Stroman. He's actually done a nice job. His last 2-3 outings have been amazing. So he hasn't been the problem for the Cubs starting rotation. Like I said, he's filling in for Stroman. Then for Sunday's game, you'll have, as my computer freezes up here, it's undecided for him. Will it be Steve Wisniewski? Will it be somebody else? We'll see what happens. But at least, Lakina, realistically, I think they could sweep it. But realistically, I think they'll take the 2 of the next 3 games.
Yeah, I think that's what you want, especially. So you want to be in a good position. So, like I said, when you host Milwaukee coming up on Monday. So we'll see what happens with that. This is SEC Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Wiki. Now, speaking of Milwaukee, thanks for no help, Minnesota. Thank you. You could have helped us out a little bit there, but no, you got y'all got they got 2-game sweep up there, but now they do host the Padres. But I mean, Milwaukee, I mean, look, like I said, they remind me of a lot like the Cubs. I mean, they got Bryce Terang, they got some good pitching, not great pitching, and whatnot, but again, like I said, I told folks, I told certain people, I said, look, the Brewers are not going to go away, are not going to run away with that division. We've seen that happen. So and I think, look, they play the Padres. I know they've won 5 in a row. They swept the Rangers. Thanks a lot for no help there either. For Texas, we'll get to them in a second. But I mean, this is why I said to folks, like, the Brewers weren't going to run away, and they haven't. So hopefully, when the Cubs face them on Monday, they'll be in like the tail end of the tailspin. So maybe the Padres can help us out a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I said about Milwaukee over the last couple of years. They're the national version of the Chicago White Sox. The difference is, one, they don't have any big names in their lineup like the White Sox do. And number 2, they're inconsistent offensively. Now, they do have the pitching in the bullpen, and I'm talking about the Brewers Brewers, but at times their offense just goes into cold slumps. I know Christian Yelich just had a kind of resurgence, and using air quotes here for those of you listening on the replay on the podcast at War Media Podcast. But their offense just goes into a tailspin at times, and their starting pitching only can do so much. So, like you mentioned, Milwaukee's not going to run away with this thing. Cincinnati, they had a great week. We'll get to them in just a second. But Milwaukee's offense is really going to be a doomsday for them if they don't get it together. So, like you said, the Cubs just take care of their business, and we'll see what Milwaukee does this weekend. It's going to be one hell of a series starting on Monday. You know, those two teams get down whether they're good or not. So I don't expect this series coming up on Monday to be any different. But if you're the Cubs, just take care of your business against Pittsburgh. Don't look ahead, and everything else will fall into place.
I agree. And speaking of Cincinnati, like I said, well, let's get to Cincinnati here. Of course, they sweep the Angels, and they lose, but they lose their opener against Arizona yesterday. But they've been kind of sort of like falling back to earth a little bit. We talked about various guys, De La Cruz. Joey Votto's been placed on the IL with the shoulder injury, so that might, especially with them coming up against the Cubs, that could come back to bite them in the butt. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, Cincy is another one of those teams where we'll see. I mean, look, they face Cincy starting next Friday, so we'll see what happens after that. But yes, but the bigger story here is what happened during that Angels series. Shohei Ohtani had to leave the game in that second game of that doubleheader, where they lost both of them, unfortunately. And of course, he has a UCL. He's gonna need Tommy John again, and we're not going to see him pitch anymore this year. And some people were saying that could this perhaps maybe affect his potential value once he goes into free agency. So what do you think? How was injury? I wish we had our buddy Chris Gilman here. I know he's a big Angels fan. I know he's not. I know he's a little bit bummed about this news. So yeah, what do you think?
What did we say last week, Lakina, on this show? We heard that Ohtani was suffering from some arm issues. We said do not pitch him again this year because he's coming on a big free agency contract. Now, he's still going to get the bag, as the kids would say, BAG for those of you scoring at home. Ohtani's going to get the bag, but this is going to be his second Tommy John surgery in the last 5 years. Yeah. Now, that's going to be huge if he stays with Anaheim, which I don't think he will. I think it's the Dodgers or the San Francisco Giants, in my opinion, a distant second. But we said not to pitch him this year because his free agency period is going to be very important. And he brings a whole lot of attention and a whole lot of dollars for him to make all the field. Now, he's still going to get that, but if he's not pitching for any certain amount of time, that's going to affect it just a little bit. But as far as on the field is concerned, for the Anaheim Angels, is over. Their acquisitions haven't worked out, and Mike Trout has been placed back on the injured list
again. Yep.
But yeah, let's be real. The Angels haven't played well, so I think this was smart for them to do. The Angels haven't played well. Mike Trout. We'll just put you back on the shelf. We'll see you next year in 2024. That's what that was all about.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate, like you said. I mean, those unfortunately, like you said, those acquisitions. I know Giolito, I think, struggled again in his last start a couple of days ago. So unfortunately, that's it hasn't worked out for them so far. So yeah, I think if I were the Angels, I would just shelve Trout for the rest of the year. You don't want to risk getting him injured anymore. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, on the flip side, so staying in the AL West, the Mariners, they win 2 out of 3 against the Sox. They open against the Royals tonight. And we talked about this, Mariners team for the last couple of years. I've been raving about it. I know Sid's been raving about it as well. They've got a lot of great hitting. Cal Raleigh, I think, had 6 RBIs in that second game against the White Sox. So, including 2 home runs. So that's a pretty interesting side there. Of course, we know about Julio Rodriguez and Josh Rojas and guys like that, and they're only a game back in the AL West. So, and the schedule, if you've seen their schedule, it actually sets up pretty well. I mean, of course, they got this weekend series against the Royals coming up. I mean, you better. I don't want to say you should sweep, but you better win at least 2 out of 3. You have Oakland coming up on Monday. So you better try to win 2 out of 3 there. So you could definitely make some inroads and perhaps maybe, make the Rangers a little bit nervous.
And also, you can make the Houston Astros nervous as well because Houston had a tough week. They split their 4-game series against the Boston Red Sox at home. Yeah. know also that Houston has had various injuries to their key stars throughout the entire season. So this is a perfect time for Seattle to catch up. Like you say, it was bad in practice here in Chicago, including the series finale on Wednesday, which they should have won that game. But, Tim Anderson decided to do a heads-up play.
Yeah, I know that was just a bad throw there,
Yeah.
but I mean, I know that it's been a kind of a tough, again they won I think like 8 of their last like 9, so they did lose that tough one. I know hopefully that's not going to a loss that comes back to bites in the butt, especially in the division side, but they're still right there. They're only a game back, so it's set up for them to actually make some inroads, perhaps even overtaking that division. Now going to Texas, I mean, I know they lost the opener against Minnesota. Oh, now you want to win a game, Minnesota? Really? Okay, whatever. But yeah, I know the injuries have mounted for Texas, so we'll see. I know they struggled a lot lately. Of course, they got swept by the Brewers. They lose both games against the Diamondbacks. So yeah, they're not looking good so far. And I know that their pitch has been a little bit off lately. I know their hitting's been okay, but it hasn't been great. So not a good time for this kind of thing, especially when we're in the brink of a pennant race.
Yeah, since we're winding down the dog days of August, we're about to get into the month of September around this time next week. This is where you need your superstars and your veterans to step up because, as we said before, it's a long 6-month season. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's time for those veteran guys, for the Rangers to step up. They got the best manager possible to help them guide this group in Bruce Bochy. So, as we said, this was going to be a tough race. It'll probably be too close to call. It'll probably come down to the last week of the season. As we said before, watch out for the Astros, and they've been doing it offensively. And even though their starting pitcher has struggled via the performance and injuries, they're still right there. Like I said, Seattle's coming, and they're doing it very quietly. So, but for Texas, I think they'll still have enough to hang on, but they got to start now because you don't want to fall too far behind, especially with the month of September coming up here next week.
Speaking of falling too far behind, my Blue Jays did not have a good series against Baltimore. They've won the first game. You thought that, okay, maybe they can perhaps win 2 out of 3, but unfortunately they lose the next 2. They're like 3-10 this year against Baltimore, and that's not good when you're trying to not only forget the wild card, now you're trying to make some inroads in AL East. So, but look, I mean, we know how great that Baltimore team is. Anthony Santana, Cedric Mullins, they had a couple of big home runs.
He's made a big return ever since he returned to that lineup.
Yes.
Talking about Cedric Mullins, yep.
Yep. So yeah, he's definitely giving them a little bit of a spark. They kind of fell off a little bit when he was out, but they he came right back. They hit a couple of home runs during that series against Toronto. So we'll see. I mean, they're 9.5 back now, so maybe the division's probably no longer in reach, but they're still like right there in the thick of the wild cards. So I think they're like at 1.5 games back. But yeah, they're I'm a little worried about Toronto. I think they might, they're gonna have to get it going here. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. I know we're up against it, so let's go to the NL real quick. The Dodgers. They're starting to pull away in that division. They won 2 out of 3 against the Guardians in Cleveland. I know that's not an easy place to win at. They kind of hammered them in that last game and that rubber match 9-3. Mookie Betts, this is had his fifth hit. He had like 4 RBIs and a home run during that game. During that game, and of course the series, he had a really good series. So he probably is making the case for the NL MVP.
Yeah, him and Freddie Freeman both. They've been bringing it all year long for the Dodgers offensively. As we talked about, Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly have been great additions via the trade from the White Sox at the trade deadline. I was listening real quick. I was listening to some LA Sports Radio the last couple of days, and some of the fans are worried about them, quote unquote, peaking too soon because I know most teams that do well in the playoffs, they peak at the right time. The last couple of weeks of the regular season going into the playoffs, it wasn't the case for the Dodgers last year, even though they won 111 games. But I don't buy into this foolishness of peaking at the right time. When everything is clicking, you just go. You can't pick and choose on when you want to win games. That's not how it works. So I don't buy that notion that, you're peaking too soon. And that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think, look, if it's click, like you said, if it's clicking, it clicks. I mean, I think, look, I know Betts has been hitting the ball very well. Freeman's hitting the ball very well. Both guys are right there in the thick for the NL MVP. So I think your pitch has actually been pretty good. They actually were pretty solid. The pitching, of course, that's been sort of like the Achilles heel for the Dodgers, especially last year's playoffs. So I think, look, if you can kind of get it going a little bit, so you can probably kind of keep it, as long as no one is everyone's on the same page and everybody's sort of doing their thing and picking at the right time. I think this whole thing about they're picking too soon, I think it's a little bit silly to say. I know we saw what happened with Tampa. They saw how great they were, and now Baltimore is in the AL East. So I know some people that's probably why some Dodgers fans are feeling that way. But I'm not too worried. I mean, I think the Dodgers they got a lot of veteran guys on there. A lot of those, even the newer guys, have won World Series, or have playoff experience, so they know what to do. So I'm not too worried about the Dodgers once they get in. So yeah, I think it's kind of silly to say, they're picking too soon. It's just kind of silly, but
Yeah, just a couple of the quick notes before we break down the weekend schedule. The New York Yankees ended their losing streak the other day, but they went back to losing again, losing 2 out of 3 at home to the Washington Trashnos, as I'll call them on this show, the Nationals. You brought up Tampa Bay. I know we haven't mentioned them yet, but they swept Colorado this week, so it's going to be between them and Baltimore for the AL East title. And as we mentioned with Boston splitting that Houston this week, I don't see them win the AL East. I'm talking about Boston. They're too far behind. They still have a small chance at the wild card. I wouldn't count them out just yet. And you know me, I don't like that team personally. Nothing personal, but just like they got so many teams to jump over. It's going to be tough, but they still find a way to hang around. I'm talking about the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, they're only 3.5 back at that last wild card spot. But I think, like you say, they got to jump over. The only place they have to jump over is Baltimore, but I don't buy that the Sox can kind of get into it. I just don't see it happening. But I might be wrong, so we'll see. But I think they kind of gave themselves a little bit too big of a too big of a hole to kind of get up there. Now you got to commend them for actually being within a striking distance, but I just don't see it happening. Of course, they got a tough schedule coming up, so we'll get into that. And right now, Houston and Detroit, that should be Detroit as they open that series. The Yankees and the Rays, we'll see what happens with that series. Washington and Miami. Miami didn't have a great week this week. They lose 2 out of 3 to San Diego, so that could be it. For them, that's you may have to say bye-bye to their playoff chances. Colorado and Baltimore, St. Louis and Philadelphia. We talk about the Cubs and the Pirates in Pittsburgh, and Cleveland and the Blue Jays. So this could probably end up being an playoff elimination game too, series as well.
Yeah, finish off your weekend schedule for baseball. It looks like this. The Angels will take on the New York Mets from New York City. The Dodgers and the Red Sox will play the first of 3 in Fenway Park, the rematch of the 2018 World Series. Tonight's game will air on Apple TV Plus. San Diego will visit Milwaukee to play the Brewers. Big series for both teams there. The Rangers and the Twins will resume their 4-game series from the Twin Cities. Cincinnati will visit Arizona. Kansas City will visit Seattle. Lakina's Mariners better be on alert. Atlanta and San Francisco will be the other late game. And your Fox Saturday night TV schedule looks like this. Most of the country will get the Cardinals and the Phillies, while others will get the Rangers and the Twins. Of course, if you're living in Pittsburgh and Chicago, you get the Cubs and the Pirates.
And just a note there, that first game of that Seattle as they host the Royals, the first game will be on Apple TV Plus at 9:10 tonight. So a special alert to all you guys in Seattle and Kansas City. Now, the rest of the TV schedule for Sunday, the last game of that Angels Yankees series will be streamed on Peacock. And, of course, the Sunday baseball game of the week will be Atlanta and San Francisco. San Francisco trying to stay within striking distance of the NL wild card.
Yes, and that's your baseball schedule for this weekend as we wrap up the month of August.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up as we'll talk, college football. Of course, I know Sid has an article. I can't wait to see what he has. Some states about the college football. See, as more conference musical chairs happening. Oh, goody. We'll talk about some of the matchups in week 0. And of course, we got sports media news. Shannon Sharp, the long-awaited rumor, has officially been confirmed. And a whole lot more sports media news and other stuff too. So Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, busy hour 2 coming up at Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Some college football talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. these colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
All right. Oh, brother.
I was
Welcome back
dancing. Those damn computers.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Sorry, we we interrupted Sig in his groove on over there. You can follow Keita McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keita is coming in the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than 50 minutes left or so in this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can please head over to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, sis. So let's talk week 0 of college football. Of course, but this is week 0. I think we're coming up with about a dozen games that will be coming up. So I'm looking forward to something. We'll talk about that in a second. But apparently, there might be some more conference moves, I guess, as you say. Apparently, there have been some various reports that Stanford, Cal, and even SMU might be going to the ACC. I said might because there are some people that are not too keen. I know North Carolina coach Anson Dorman. I know he said, he's a soccer coach, a veteran soccer coach. He's coached, I think, like 20 some years now. He said that they can die on those schools can die on a vine. Those are his words, not mine. So it's a little bit silly that this is even a discussion. I know there have been like some other schools that are probably I think NC State's another school that are not too keen on this idea. So Yeah, just kind of want to kind of bring that up and just say, oh, it's sort of kind of silly, but no one's into this. I don't think anything's going to come in. I know Stuart Mendel has been reporting this for the last couple of days for ESPN, but I just don't see it happening. Yeah, a lot of ACC presidents, some ACC schools don't want this to happen. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that, Sid.
We are witnessing the fastest death of the Pac-12 conference right before our eyes. His name escapes me for a moment. The former Pac-12 commissioner that didn't see the forest through the Larry Scott. Thank you, Larry Scott didn't see the forest through the trees, and the rest of those people who are in charge now, they're paying for the sins that he did several years ago. But as far as those West Coast teams were trying to move to the ACC, how you can work out the travel logistics for not just football, but for basketball and for the other sports as well. We know that for other sports, it's tough enough to get up the funds that they already have to fund these programs. I know most of the money in most of those big-time schools come from football and basketball, and that's what covers it up for all the other sports to thrive on. But how are you going to get the money up for the travel logistics, not just for the football and the basketball teams, but for the other sports? And you got to figure out the time difference and other logistics that goes on as well. It's just a big mess. It wouldn't make any sense anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just silly, of course, like you said. I mean, you're Stanford, Cal. I mean, it's bad enough that they're going even further than what USC and UCLA are going to go through next year, going to the Big Ten. So it's just sort of like crazy how all this is kind of like transpired. Of course, we know the money is the root of all of this. So it's just silly. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of this. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to like college sports and stuff like that. Now, as they say, look, you can't say that you're not chasing money when you kind of are. So this is sort of silly that they're doing this, but I don't know. It just is kind of crazy. Let's get into the gridiron stuff because like I said, this is making me angry. But let's preview some of the games coming up tomorrow as Navy and Notre Dame. I think this is gonna be I think I said, I think this is probably the earliest they're gonna be playing each other. I think since Roger Staubach, that was like about 50 years ago, back in the 60s. They're playing in Dublin. That's probably another reason why they're doing it early because it's still a little bit warm. Yeah, I think it's probably why they're doing it. It's in Dublin. It's gonna be a little bit warmer. I think it's gonna be about in the upper 70s tomorrow, so it's going to be nice and warm, and I'm sure it's going to be a good contention of both Irish fans here in Ireland and maybe Navy fans too. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of people from naval bases going to be there as well, so it'll be interesting. I know Marcus Freeman was his second year there. I know some people said that maybe Notre Dame could perhaps, I don't know, maybe they could perhaps maybe make a case for the college football playoff. I doubt that, but again, look, they've got like a solid foundation there. I know he's been recruiting very well too. I know that talking about Notre Dame. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what this is going to be. I know Navy's actually they didn't have a good year last year, but they could end up being pretty good this year. So it could be interesting. I think Notre Dame should be on upset alert, but it'll be to see how, especially with the time difference and stuff like that.
One, I think the time difference will not matter that much because you have about 5 or 6 months to prepare for that. I'm talking about both teams, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a difference. I'm sure they've been there. I think they've been there all week preparing for this, so they had time to get used to it. For the Fighting Irish, like you mentioned, Marcus Freeman, this is going to be a big year for him in number 2. Now, they were one of those teams that might have an outside shot of getting into that college football playoff last year, but they had a bad home loss to Marshall, and they struggled in the middle part of the season. They did kind of get it together at the end of the year, but you could blame that on not having enough talent, especially offensively. It's going to be a key for Marcus Freeman's Fighting Irish to have those skilled players on offense. The defense has actually been solid, but this more than I do, Lakina. Even today's game, you still need to score points, and that's something I want to see Notre Dame do.
Yeah, they got Joel Alt, who is their veteran, a guy on that O-line. He's a preseason All-American, so I'm we'll see if it could be interesting to kind of we'll see how Notre Dame looks through the season. So I think what we've talked about, I know it's going to be. This is going to be kind of like the thing where it's going to be a little bit test to see how good this Notre Dame team is going to be this year. So I know Sam Hartman, I know they just, he just transferred. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he's going to look. So, having a veteran guy to kind of sort of help out a little bit. I think he's a 6-year senior, I believe. So Yeah, this is really going to be interesting to think here, and then we'll see how Notre Dame looks. I mean, look, I'm kind of, I know our buddy Sean Davis is a big fan, so I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say about this. We'll see what happens. We'll try to get him back on the show at some point. Now, Caleb Williams will start his Heisman defense. The preseason All-America, of course, the reigning Heisman winner, as they host San Jose State. That's going to be at 7:00 on the Pac-12 Network tomorrow night.
Good luck finding the Pac-12 number if you don't have cable.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be streaming somewhere, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't.
You sure about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I don't have the Pac-12 network. They dropped another Larry Scott special, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see how that defense looks, because that was really like the big thing with USC last year was their defense. They gave up a lot of points. You saw what happened at the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. So I'm wondering, like, I'm no easy. I know you add a lot of muzzle talking about Caleb Williams. I know Cliff Kingsbury is there now working with him, so that could definitely help him in that front. He could probably be even better than he. Some people say he perhaps maybe win the second one, which would be the first time that's happened, I think, since Archie Griffin way back in the mid '70s. So we'll see what happens there. But like I said, it's really going to be their defense. That's going to be the key for USC.
Yeah, because we talked about it all last year, Lakina, about the Trojans' defense. It was an Achilles heel for them, but they survived it until Utah knocked them around in that Pac-12 title game, in which cost USC a chance to go to the college football playoff. We'll see how much that Lincoln Riley has recruited this offseason to get some playmakers on that side of the ball. On offense, like you said, they still should be fine. They may take a slight step back, but I think they should be good enough. I'm focusing on the Trojans' defense this year. And Dorian Singer and Mario Williams, I want to see what those guys do this year for the Trojans as well.
Yeah, I think that's really going to be the key in there, and I think they shouldn't have to. I know San Jose State has actually been pretty solid the last couple of years, but I think they are starting to rebuild. So again, we'll see. I think if they don't get caught looking ahead, I mean, the schedule set up pretty well for them. Talking about SC, I mean, they got Nevada next week, then they got Stanford, they got Arizona State. They're actually going to be pretty solid this year. Arizona State, they play Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes in the 30th. They got Notre Dame coming up on the October 14th. Then they play Utah the week after that. And they got to go Washington. We'll talk about them in a second, because a lot of people are thinking that Washington could probably make a go at it. And plus, there are no more divisions in the Pac-12, so it's going to be the top two teams. So, no more Pac-12 North or Pac-12 South. So it's going to be the top two teams. And they play Oregon. They're going to, you got Bo Nix back. They're going to be a pretty solid team this year as well. And they have UCLA, of course, the finish of the season. Of course, that's going to be a weird. This is going to be the last time they're going to be facing each other in the Big Ten. But yeah, so I like their chance. So what do you think?
I was going to ask you. I think USC is going to have a great season. But I wanted to ask you, Lakina. My answer will be no, because in the middle of the part of that schedule. But I'll ask you: do you think USC goes undefeated? Because I think that's the only realistic, quote unquote, guarantee shot they have of making the college football playoff. They damn near did it last year, almost going undefeated until the Pac-12 title game. But do you think they go undefeated this year? I say no. I think they'll be knocking at the door of the college football playoff. They'll probably get in. But first of all, Caleb Williams cannot get hurt. And like I said, I think if they have more than one loss, it's going to be trouble.
And I think it's going to be tough, because, like I said, the schedule set up. I know they have to go at Notre Dame this year. They go in October, so it shouldn't be too cold. They do host Utah, so that should help them a little bit. They also host Washington as well. They got to go at Oregon, though, in mid-November. So that could perhaps maybe be a caveat there as well. So I think they could go undefeated, but it's going to be, they got a couple of tough games. So it's going to be.
Do they play Oregon State this year?
No, they don't. They'll play Oregon State.
They're lucky because Oregon State gave them a game on the road last year.
They did. And I saw that game. And it's going to be, they don't want to play Oregon State this year, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Now, of course, some of the other games that are will be tomorrow. You got Clark Lee, who signed another extension. He's doing great things down there in at Vanderbilt. They host Hawaii. Then at 6:30 on SEC Network. They got San Diego State. That's been very solid too. They host Ohio University at 6 o'clock also on FS1. And you got UMass and New Mexico State on ESPN at 6. So some pretty solid games. Jacksonville State and UTEP, two kind of up and coming FCS programs. So well, Jacksonville State's FCS, but yeah, I know UTEP. They're in the. I think they're in Conference USA. I know there's been so many conference moving. I know it's hard to kind of keep track, but
yeah, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it's hard. It is very hard, and of course, Florida International against Louisiana Tech. That should be a fun one at 8:00 on CBS Sports Network.
Couple of games I'm looking at here for Saturday, tomorrow, Saturday, for those of you listening back on the replay on the podcast. Florida versus Utah. I think this is a rematch of last year's opening game. Remember, Lakina, we talked about Utah playing tough on the road at Florida. They played with Florida last year and they lost it in the last few seconds. Of course, number 14 Utah will host Florida this year. That's at 7:00 tomorrow, Saturday on ESPN. And at the same time on Fox, Nebraska versus Minnesota. I thought Minnesota was one of my teams last year to watch out for. Lakina, they had a tough stretch from the middle to the end of the season, which they clearly stumbled. Nebraska, they still trying to get back on track and find their identity. But for Nebraska and Minnesota, Minnesota is going to be the home team for this one. I think this is a big game for both teams. So call me crazy. I think this is a bigger game for the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, I mean the Cornhuskers. I know they got a new head coach, so I'm thinking that this is gonna be interesting to see how that's all kind of going to play out and going to shake out. So I'm wondering about that, how Nebraska's going to look. I mean, the early Big Ten game there. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. You're going a little further than I thought. I mean, we're doing like this, this schedule for this week too. I see, so we're gonna be interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be a log jam of games. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
Oh, that's on Thursday. Sorry, folks.
Yeah,
sorry. This is coming Thursday. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that. I mean, those Thursday games are gonna be interesting. Like I said, the Florida Utah game. Florida, of course, they struggled last year against Utah. We'll see how they look this year. The weather shouldn't be an issue, so be interested to see what happens with that. Now, of course, that Minnesota game. I mean, with all this has been coming out about PJ Fleck that allegedly might have taken place, we'll see how much that affects him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, that Nebraska Minnesota game going to be an early Big Ten statement there. UAB and North Carolina A&T and Tulsa and Pine Bluff. Also to get the Fighting Mike Burmas, as we call them here, the Missouri Tigers, as they face South Dakota. A pretty solid team from FCS. That'll be on SEC Network. So yeah, so some pretty good games coming up these next few days.
Yeah. So as we said before, we'll say it again. Keep it here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're going to be your home for college football, both locally and nationally, from week 0 all the way through the national championship game in January. Lakina and yours surely will keep you up to date on all the latest happenings from the world of college football, Heisman Trophy candidates, which we'll get to in a sec. And we'll have your teams that are trending up, trending down, and all the big, and we'll give you the nuggets on all the big games coming up for that particular week. So you want to keep it here for all your college football news and nuggets right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
And we're going to try to get Sid to watch more college football games this
year. We'll see about that. If you get me to watch more than one game a week, that'll be an accomplishment. We'll see about that.
All right. We'll see. We'll try. We'll work on him. I think Sean and I, we all made that admission there. So okay, listen, I can see it Sports on Sports in Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Do you want to do your thing with college football? Or do you
yes.
Heisman candidates? Or, okay.
That's what this list was about. The Heisman candidates. It comes to us. This article comes to us from our guys at Pro Football Focus. They had their top 10 candidates for the Heisman Trophy for this upcoming 2023 season. I'll start at number 10. Quarterback Cade Klubnik from the Clemson Tigers. He was a true freshman last year. He wasn't a full-time starter, but he had a completion rate of 91.1% of his. He completed 91% of his passes last year. And Lakina, we talked about this before. With Clemson. They struggled the last couple of years. They weren't in the national championship picture. It looks like a few people are picking up to be one of those sneaky teams to get one of those 4 spots in there this year. Do you think that Dabo Swinney will get his guys in there this year? Because they're going to be motivated now more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have a solid quarterback in Clay Kublik.
Yeah, Kubik was a very hard to recruit, so I don't think a lot of people thought that. A lot of people wanted him to play last year. Of course, DJ Olonier. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. He transferred, so now it's Quebec's team now. So I'm looking forward to see how he looks. I mean, the schedule kind of sets up. They play Florida State. They host Florida State this year on the 23rd of September. They are at Miami and they face Notre Dame in the first week of November. Of course, also North Carolina on November 18th. So the schedule actually sets up pretty well for them. I can see why there's some people that might that might think that they may have a shot, perhaps maybe getting in and sticking in there. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be expecting too much from them this year. And I think especially after what happened last year, it was sort of a, dare I say, a down year for Clemson. So they got a lot of guys back, and they've got a lot of weapons there for Cuba to throw to. So yeah, they could definitely have a shot, perhaps maybe making some inroads. I don't want to say surprise some folks, but I think there might be people say, oh, there's a thing of old.
Yep. Continuing with the top 10 Heisman candidates of 2023, the list from Pro Football Focus, number 9. This name was shocking. Well, the position on this list was shocking, but not the name. Wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. I thought he was going to come out last year, Lakina, but he didn't. Me personally, if you're the Bears, you're watching him closely, especially if Chase Claypool doesn't work out. You got that extra first-round pick from Carolina from that trade for DJ Moore. If you're the Bears, if Carolina stinks this year, you use that first-round pick to pick up Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see who we throw, who will be have the lucky guy who gets to throw the ball to. So yeah, because he'll have a quarterback. But yeah, so Ryan Day did a quarterback just yet. We'll talk about that perhaps next week. But yeah, I really think if he had not gotten injured last year, they probably could have gotten that out of that semifinal. I mean, but. Yeah, but you know what? He's back. He looks great, and look, we'll see what happens. I mean, he could definitely, again, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on him this year, so he may not have the high numbers that he did last year. So just a little caveat to any Buckeyes fans that he might have a shot. He perhaps could go to New York City in December, but we'll have to wait and see.
Number 8, quarterback Quint Ewers from Texas Longhorns.
Yep. Yeah, I really like him. I think. Look, this guy's gotten better and better. I think he's a junior now. So, of course, you got Arch Manning, Peyton and Eli's nephew, waiting in the wings. So he better, be very good this year. So Texas, we'll see if Texas is back. We'll be back. We'll see. I mean, kind of like the last time we'll see them in the Big 12 up front. So, yeah, I mean, I think he'll definitely have a shot to perhaps maybe a breakout year, but we'll see.
At number 7, this quarterback could be the second-rated quarterback in the NFL draft coming up in 2024. I could be wrong, but as of right now, at number 7, quarterback Drake May of North Carolina.
He is a guy that is very seasoned. He's not afraid to kind of scope out guys. So yeah, he's seen pretty much every defense you can kind of throw at him. I can see why some people want perhaps maybe he might be one of those guys that perhaps give Caleb Williams and maybe even Marvin Harrison Jr. a run for their money in that. So if he can avoid getting hurt, that's really going to be the key. If he can avoid getting hurt, I think that's really going to be the main thing. But yeah, North Carolina is one of those teams where, they're not a football school anymore, folks. They're actually have a pretty solid football program. So the schedule setup is they have a little bit of tough scheduling this year. Like I said, we talked about the matchup with Clemson coming up in a couple of months, but again, it's really going to be good about how he throws the ball to, how they make him look. And but they got a tough one coming off the back against South Carolina. That's going to be a tough matchup for them. So next weekend, so that's going to right off the bat. Minnesota's going to be a little bit tough. Pittsburgh's going to be tough. Syracuse and Miami as well. So he's going to be facing a lot of solid defenses. So we'll see how he looks.
And finishing up the first half of this list from Pro Football Focus, the top 10 candidates you should watch out for the Heisman Trophy for this upcoming season. Quarterback Bo Nix of Oregon. He's now has his adopted brother Troy transfer, Tez Johnson, to throw to this year.
Yeah, he does, which is good. I know they practice a lot. They grew up together, so that's that's really could perhaps maybe help him out a little bit. I know he's been, he's kind of up and down. I know that it didn't work out for him down in Auburn. He went to Oregon. He now has been, playing pretty well. Like you say, he's got his adopted brother there now to throw to, so that should help him out a little bit there. And I think Oregon perhaps could be one of those teams that could definitely give USC, Washington, those teams a run. So yeah, I think if he avoids making mistakes, we've seen good Bo Nix and bad Bo Nix the last couple of years. So
yeah,
if we can see more of the good Bo Nix. I know that there's been billboards up in Manhattan. I know Oregon. We know they got the money over there in Oregon, so they can they've been doing the whole like Heisman campaign thing for him like the last like week. So we'll see if it pays dividends.
Yeah, Lakina, you want to do an audible here? Let's break here on Second City Sports. We'll come back and finish up the top 5 list of top 10 candidates to watch out for the Heisman for this upcoming 2023 college football season. We'll also get into some sports media news. First Take is going through some changes as well. We have some other news and nuggets we want to share with you guys before we jump out of here for the weekend. As you're listening to the Friday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, I'm Sid. That's Sakina. Don't move a muscle.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Fun Friday Fun Edition. We're live in Live Color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keenan_again, the IG.
And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, Sid, let's finish up the top 5 Heisman candidates for the upcoming season.
Yes, this comes courtesy of our good friends at Pro Football Focus. At number 5, you mentioned the Washington Huskies. They have a star quarterback named Michael Penix. They'll have masterminds behind him with head coach Kalen DeBoer and offensive coordinator Brian Grubb.
Yeah, he had a great year last year. Although he might have taken a backseat to his wide receiver, one of his top receivers, Roma Dunzi. He had a breakout season last year. He led the Pac-12 in receiving yards. He also became the first player in the school's history to have 4 straight 100-yard receiving games. So we know Michael Penix Jr. We know, he's in a great job. I think he was one of the top, passers, after Caleb Williams last year. But he might have to share the spotlight a little bit with the Heisman stuff. So yeah, we'll see what happens if those two can kind of. I'm talking about Adenzi and Penix Jr. to kind of keep it going for Washington. It could be some big things for Washington this year. I think, look, Washington's one of those teams where they took a little bit of a step back, a couple of years prior, but they had a great season last year. And I think, look, they could definitely give USC, Oregon, they could be right up there. So I really like that Washington team. They have a great defense, too.
Number 4 running back Blake Corum of the Michigan Wolverines.
Came back last year after suffering a torn ACL. Preseason All-American. He led the Big Ten in rushing last year before he got hurt. We'll see. I mean, that they're going to have 4 different coaches, I guess, for those first 4 games that Jim Harbaugh's going to be out. But yeah, he wants to perhaps maybe get a chance to win a national championship. That's one of the reasons why he came back and wanted to perhaps maybe win the Heisman. So, if he stays healthy, we know how great he is. So it's going to be scary how he looks after coming back from ACL surgery.
Number 3 quarterback Jaden Daniels from the LSU Tigers. He posted a career high 87.8 grade in his first season, helping the LSU Tigers go 10-4 after a troubling first month of the season. And he was the only quarterback in the country to have over 1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,079 rushing yards to be exact, with a 0.6 turnover-worthy play rate.
Yeah, I mean, I really like his game. He can run, he can throw, and look, I think Brian Kelly definitely struck gold there with Daniels. And look, we'll see what happens. I mean, look, LSU kind of came out of nowhere after having that slow start for the first month last year. So now they're no longer they're going to be the hunted. So we'll see how he looks, and we'll see how LSU looks.
Okay, the last 2 names on this list goes like this. Number 2, quarterback Jordan Travis of the Florida State Seminoles. I've been hearing a little bit more talk about Florida State this year. Not so much for the national championship, but we know that their program has been struggling for the last few years. Do you see them in any way possible, quote unquote, making a comeback this year?
I know I've seen a lot of people say that they could be a sleeper for the playoff. I mean, I want to see how that defense looks first. We know about Jordan Travis. I mean, he's a guy that had some was great in some spots, but wasn't good in other spots. I know he tends to throw those interceptions a lot, but he's got a little bit more experience under his belt. He's a little more seasoned. Remember, he's a senior, so this could be his time to kind of break out. And I mean, I kind of think that they may have a shot. Perhaps, like I said, it's really as he goes, so does Florida. And look, they got a very tough one. I know LSU is going to want that revenge. That revenge game from last year. They face each other in the opener next weekend, so I know LSU is going to want their revenge. So yeah, we'll see how it looks. I mean, him and Daniels, facing each other. That should be a fun one.
And of course, number 1 quarterback Caleb Williams from USC. Of course, many draft experts will have Caleb Williams as their number 1 pick in the NFL draft coming up next year. Of course, you mentioned Lakina. He's trying to become the first college football player since Archie Griffin back in the 70s to win back-to-back Heisman trophies. Of course, Griffin did it back in 74 and 75. For me personally, Lakina, as for Williams personally, just stay healthy and don't mess up your draft status. That's all this season is about for him.
Yeah, and we covered it, a few minutes ago with Mr. Williams. I mean, like you said, just avoid any serious injuries. Just do your thing and make sure your team wins. Make sure the defense. We gotta make sure the defense does their job. We'll see if Lincoln Riley recruits a good defense. I think he did. He did a couple of really solid defenders. We'll talk more about that probably next week. But yeah, I mean, look, just do your look. It's hard to win back to back. I mean, it's hard to do. So yeah, maybe some guy goes out of nowhere, perhaps maybe becomes a sleeper like the 5 guys mentioned, before the break. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're Kayla Woods, you want to try to focus, take it 1 week at a time. You're not gonna be able to worry about what people say about you, on the television side or whatever, podcast or what have you. So yeah, just do your thing, improve yourself, work out. You got Cliff Kingsbury working with you now, so that should definitely help you a lot. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, I think my top 2 candidates for the Heisman Trophy, of course, is Williams from USC and from Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. Hopefully he stays healthy this year. Like you said, that quarterback situation for the Buckeyes, they better get straightened out quick. But I think my two dark horse candidates from this list would be Kubnik from Clemson and Derek May from North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah, I mean, look, Kubik, I think, could be a sleeper. I think he's only
Drake
19.
May, I should say.
Yeah, Drake May. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't really be a sleeper. I'm talking about me, but I think Kubik could definitely be a sleeper too. He's only 19. We saw how he looked last year. He saw some great flashes, especially once he got the starting job. Now the starting job is his. He's gonna have guys around him. That Clemson team is very young, so they could perhaps maybe, dare I say, surprise some folks, but we'll see.
Yeah, like I said, if Kluberman has a big year, obviously, if Clemson should sneak into the college football player, Kubalik is going to have a big year, and that's the case. That's definitely going to bump up some votes for him.
Should be a lot of fun. Like I said, we'll be one of your homes for college football here on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll talk, college. We'll talk about Heisman stuff, all that and all the top games. We'll even have some people to come on. We're gonna have somebody big coming on Monday to start the show. We're off the bat at 12:15. So we won't tell you who it is. I'll just got to tune in. But
stay tuned. As Rick Hahn would say, tune in.
Tune in. Yes, exactly. So this is Second C Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakita McGee, Cindy Brown, with you now. Sid, we're going to switch gears here and talk some sports media news and a long-awaited rumor we would talk about for like the last month. It feels like even longer than that. But it looks like it's all official. It's all official now, I should say.
Yes, Shannon Sharp will head over to ESPN to join First Take. He's going to hang out with Stephen A. Smith during the football season. He's going to be on there for at least, I think, 2 or 3 days out of the week there. He's going to talk football with him. He's filling the place for Michael Irvin, which it looks like he's going to go to Undisputed on FS1. That new cast will debut on Monday. I'll give you my Cisco and EB review on that episode. That's coming up on our next show on Monday. But as far as Shannon Sharp is concerned, him and Stephen A. is going to do some good things. Remember, a long time ago, Shannon Sharp filled in with Stephen A. for Stephen A. on First Take when that show first started many years ago when he was doing some work with CBS. And I think he did a couple of shows with Stephen A. as well when Skip was still at ESPN. So I think that this is going to be a great dynamic. I know that First Take still has some good ratings for what I read, what I have read, I should say. But I think this is going to be fine. I think this saves their show until basketball season.
Probably, I think that's going to be the key here. Like I said, I don't watch First Take anyway, so I'm like, I really don't care.
I just gotta catch the clips on YouTube like you do.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, okay. I mean, look, we know Shannon Sharp brings something different and different taste. We know he's not afraid to, suppress his opinions. We know he's pretty smart. So I'm like, okay, it's just another element. All right. I mean, look, I know he and Dan Orlovsky, Ryan Clark, and the rest of that group, I'm sure they're going to be fine, in that front. So, okay, whatever. But, it's like I said, I mean, this has been along the way to rumor. I mean, and we now see it's official. So we'll see. Yeah, should be interesting.
And speaking of Shannon Sharp, it was announced yesterday, I think the other day or yesterday officially, that his show Club Shay Shay will be part of the Colin Cowherd podcast network, The Volume.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think he'll be able to be a little bit more freer, as if he was side with ESPN, and in that front. So I'm sure he'll be able to swear. I don't think he swears a lot, during the podcast, but I'm glad that he'll be able to kind of keep it. I'm not I'm not a big Cowherd fan, but that's probably the better spot for him, I think, for his podcast. Talking about Shannon Sharp.
Yes. So congratulations to Shannon Sharp. Some more sports media news. I'm just reading the headlines. Looking, I don't know if you saw this, but even though NFL Sunday Ticket, their new home is right here on YouTube starting in a couple of weeks. DirecTV is giving customers free NFL Sunday Ticket despite no longer having those rights. Exactly. Please make that make sense for me. If you can.
They want to have the bases covered in case something weird happens. Look, we talked about for the last couple of months. We saw what happened during the NBA playoffs with YouTube TV. I mean, they want to make sure their bases are covered. I guess they want to look. We'll give you guys Sunday Ticket for free for this season. So yeah, I mean, sure, why not? If you're the NFL, okay.
On that note, sticking with ESPN. I'm just reading the headlines here. I don't know if you saw this, but ESPN could charge up to $35 per month for their direct-to-consumer service.
That's one of the pitfalls of doing the direct-to-consumer service. I mean, you're going to be paying for. I wonder what that entails. Will it be all the ESPN channels, including ESPN Plus, or Will it be like, certain channels? I mean, I kind of want to see how that works before, like, just vibe, folks paying $30 a month. I kind of need to see a little bit more of that, but yeah.
Yeah, we know that the cord cutting has been a thing over the last decade or so. Mostly is because of the way ESPN has changed, being more political and other stuff behind the scenes we won't get into. But, we'll see if they execute this service. And like I said, what comes along with this service, that's also key as well. So we'll see what happens with that. And like I said, welcome to a new age of how we view our television shows, in particular sports. Going back to Fox, Lakina. Going back to Fox, Lakina, Julian Edelman, the former NFL wide receiver of the New England Patriots, a multiple Super Bowl champion, he's going to replace Sean Payton on the NFL on Fox pregame show. The pregame show before the big guys come on at 11 o'clock. He's going to join the cast of the Fox NFL Kickoff, which is, of course, hosted by Carissa Thompson. Julian Edelman will join the likes of Colin Cowherd, Charles Woodson, and Michael Vick.
Yeah,
I actually like this show personally, and Peter Schrager as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's good. Like I said, I mean, it's kind of like the appetizer for the main Fox NFL Sunday. So, this is gonna. I know. Look, we've seen him. He's done TV for the last couple of years locally for the Patriots. I know he has a podcast as well. So we know he's got a great personality and very smart. So I think he'll fit in just fine with that group. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how. But like I said, with the main Fox NFL Sunday, I know this is going to be their 30th year, doing NFL coverage. But you wonder, will guys like Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, I'll even say Jimmy Johnson, like how long those guys want to do it. So if you got guys like Edelman and Vic and Michael Vick and Charles Woodson kind of waiting in the wings, I mean, like I said, it's going to be interesting. But I'm sure Edelman will do just fine on that show.
Yeah, this news came out in June, but we just want to get this as a reminder to you viewers viewing NFL content outside of Sunday. Of course, Inside the NFL was on HBO for many years, and then switched to Showtime. And of course, the last couple of years, it was on Paramount Plus before it got the boot. Now it has a new home, the CW. So it's going to premiere on Tuesday, September 5th at 7 o'clock p.m., I believe, Chicago time. And of course, the show is hosted by James Brown. Of course, I think Michael Irvin's still part of that cast as well, Brandon Marshall, and former quarterback Phil Simms. So Inside the NFL will be on your local CW affiliate. I think the CW has an app as well. So if you don't have a CW affiliate in your town, you can stream it on their app as well. So this is the first time in history that the NFL, Inside the NFL, will be on exclusively on broadcast television.
And it's on WCIU for all you Chicago folks here in Chicago. It's on WCIU, the CW is. So, yeah, I mean, look, we know that the CW, they're going to, bring in more sports content. They're, totally changing the trajectory of their programming. So, again, having, for folks that probably couldn't watch the last couple of years on Paramount Plus, I think this is a nice way to do it. Bring on the CW and, the next star stuff. We'll see if they figure that out on the DirecTV side. But, I think it's sort of a nice extra place for it. I think it should be okay. I think especially for what the CW wants to try and do now. But
yeah, Lakina, a couple of big news to pass along to. One of them is a good friend of the show. Of course, we know that Diamond Sports and Bally, who owns Bally Sports, is going through a tough time. We just want to send our congratulations and big heads up to Brad Evans, and of course our sports auntie, hashtag the sports auntie, Maggie Hendricks. Unfortunately, they were let go by Bally Sports yesterday, but both those respectable personalities have done great work in the past, and they should stay in the sports industry and do great work. And so I don't think it'll be too long for both of those folks will find great work. Will find work.
Well, yeah, and plus also too, Maggie is still going to be covering I think both college basketball and WNBA for the Athletics. So you'll still see her doing that. I'm sure if her and Brad both, they're both great at what they do. So I'm not worried about that. I'm sure they'll find other places to go. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, but again, the problems at Bally Sports. I mean, we were talking about for the last couple of months. That's going through a lot of changes. So yeah. Unfortunately, our buddy Maggie got but I'm sure our sports is going to be just fine. I think.
Yeah. See, there was some other news here. for Amazon, the Travis Kelce, the Kelce brothers documentary, Jason Kelce documentary trailer shows family-focused retirement discussion as well. As we mentioned, both the Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, both brothers, they play in the NFL, of course. Both those teams faced off against each other in last year's Super Bowl. I'm talking about Philadelphia, Kansas City. Like we talked about before, both of them, they have a great podcast. But
yes, they do. It's hilarious.
But Jason Kelce is going to have a documentary debuting soon on Amazon Prime. Is going to focus it more on his off the field persona in his life, not just his football life.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there have been, he had some debate, whether or not he was going to retire. I'm sure they're going to talk about that. He just had another daughter, so I'm sure that'll be covered as well. So, yeah, I think you're going to be seeing a little bit more like on the human side, not a lot of football. But look, we know that, both Kelce brothers have great personalities, so I don't think they've got a great podcast. I'm sure we're probably going to see one or both those brothers on television at some point when they retire. So, this should be a fun one. I might check it out. I might sneak into my my sister's Amazon thing to check it out. But keep that secret. But I think it should be fun. I mean, I might check it out.
Yeah, don't put her password out in these streets because too many people, especially gets in the wrong hands, will get your sister's password. I guarantee she will not appreciate it.
Oh yeah, well no, I got her covered with some of the other streaming services that I have. So
good.
She won't be too upset about it. But going back to Fox for a second, of course, they released their broadcast teams for this season. Of course, no Tom Brady, not till next year. But of course, still you got Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Anderson, Tom Rinaldi. Those
you're going to see, if you're a Bears fan, you're going to see that crew too the first 3 games this year.
Yes, you will. On the Bears game, I should say, and I think the week 3 game.
Bears Chiefs.
Yeah, against the Chiefs. So yeah, they're going to see a lot of those 4 coming up. But of course, the number 2 team got Joe Davis, Daryl Moose Johnson, Pam Oliver. Moose Johnson should be in the Hall of Fame, but I digress. Adam Amin and the Mark St. Schlerf and Christina Pink. Also, Kenny Albert, John Viville, and Shannon Spake.
I really like that crew. You might see a few Bears games this year.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they do too. Kevin Kluwer, Mari Sanchez, and Laura Oakman, who I think she's from Muskogee. I think Laura is.
Yeah.
And Chris Myers, Robert Smith, and Jennifer Hale, who of course does great work covering the Pelicans. There's that reporter there. Those are your top 5 main broadcast teams. So really, no real chance that Jen Hale's going to be doing it more on a full season. She usually does maybe a handful of games. Now she's going to be doing a full season. So she's going to have a busy fall going into the winter coming up with. I'm sure she's going to do some stuff with the Pelicans. But yeah. So yeah, no really big changes on that side for Fox and their broadcast crews.
And plus, she's still hosting. I believe she'll still host Undisputed, which, as I said, they'll make their season debut on Monday.
Yeah. Yep. So so she's gonna have she'll be a very busy bee this year. So yeah, so no real big changes. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much status quo there. I'm sure you're gonna be seeing various guys from the college side. You're covering some of the games in case Fox has a doubleheader. So yeah, you might be seeing a lot of that, but no real big changes for the Fox broadcast crews.
Going back to ESPN, we didn't talk about this the other day, Lakina, but doing first fake, as I call it, or first take. Stephen A. Smith made a comment that Lonzo Ball, the injured point guard for the Chicago Bulls, couldn't stand. Of course, Lonzo Ball, unfortunately, will not play this year for the upcoming 23-24 season for Chicago. Stephen A. Smith made the comment that Lonzo Ball couldn't even stand, let alone run. I was like, no crap, fool. And then, of course, Lonzo Ball, this prompted him to make a special video posted on his social media page that said, check this out, Stephen A. I can stand on my own. I can stand, I can walk. I'll let you know about the other, I just paraphrase, I'll let you know about the other stuff later. Here you go.
Yeah, and of course, unfortunately, I think he said that he's not going to play this year. I'm talking about Ball, so but I mean, I know the Bulls actually were able to kind of recoup that $10 million, so that could help them a little bit, perhaps maybe get somebody down the line. But
yeah,
I mean, I know this has not been a good week for Stephen A. Smith. I mean, didn't it? I know he said that the Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs wasn't happy there. He wants out of there. Of course, Diggs had to come out and say, "Hey, that's not true. That's BS." Like, hey, if you have something to say about me, come see me or something like that. I'm a paraphrase of what he tweeted, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, this has not been a good show. I think sometimes when it comes to some stuff, I think some people just do it for clicks. I'm not saying Stephen A. is one of those people, but I think he is one of those guys that does tend to like not know when to be quiet. So
Yeah.
there's some cases where you kind of just have to just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just zip it.
Yeah, I know some people accused him for quote unquote losing it over the last few years, and I don't blame those people for saying it because what's the first name you think about when you think about ESPN? Stephen A. Smith. I know he gets paid a whole lot more money over there, and plus he has his own podcast on Odyssey, which I think is me personally. I think is very good when he interviews people outside the sports world, but when it comes to sports takes, like I said, I respect him for what he's done in the past, but with this first take thing, like I said, I think he's lost it. I get he's a character and all that, but that's one of the main reasons why I don't watch that program. That's just me.
Yeah. Oh, there are other. Yeah, I think he said that's just one of the reasons why I don't watch it. But yeah, I mean,
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said. I mean, look, Stephen A. is one of those guys where, I mean, like I don't know what's his spiel or what's his shtick anymore. I think it's kind of old and tired. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's just like all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's end this program on an interesting note. Lakina, of course, the White Sox and the A's will face off at Sox Park on the South Side this weekend. Of course, tonight, Friday, for those of you that are listening back on the replay on our podcast, tonight will feature a post-game concert. I Love the 90s tour featuring Vanilla Ice, Tone Loc, and Rob Bass, of course, without DJ Easy Rock, who passed away a few years ago. May so rest in peace. But it's going to headline those three acts from the world of hip hop. Lakina, we talked about on the 50th anniversary of hip hop a couple of weeks ago. We won't get into that, but if someone gave you a free ticket to the concert for tonight's game, would you go?
Oh boy. I mean, I guess I might go. I mean, just because I like I don't know. I mean, would you? I mean, I think maybe, but that might be the best. That might be the best part of that. That's of that A's Sox series. Will be that concert. Just saying. I mean, look, these are not like the 80s, 70s, 80s, Sox and A's. So that 90s concert might be the best part of this weekend. So that might that might rate better than the game, the average of those three games. I know a lot of people didn't go last night. I know that you saw that series against the run match against Seattle. The Sox were able to win that one for I don't know how, but you saw a lot of people didn't. Well, it was like about 100 degrees, but still, I mean,
it was hot last night. It was hot. I was there last night for other reasons, of course. If you're watching on our YouTube, of course, the Oakland A's fans that are in town, they were passing out the sell the team T-shirts. So I was giving one for free last night, and so they'll be out there this weekend to protest their franchise for. Unfortunately, it looks like they're going to move to Las Vegas in due time in the next 2 or 3 years. And of course, with Jerry Reinsdorf making all the changes he's made so far, of course, more changes with that franchise, as we told you, are coming down the pipeline. But as far as that concert is concerned, Lakina, would I go? Obviously, I'm not going tonight. If it was a free ticket, would I go? Maybe. Like I said, I don't hate Vanilla Ice. He had a couple of good hits, but he wouldn't be the reason why that I would go. Like I said, those other two acts that I mentioned, I would go.
Yeah, it was the other two I probably would go. Like I said, no shade to Vanilla Ice, but I don't think that him being a headliner is enough for me to want to have to go with
right. Exactly. That's just what you're trying to say.
No shade. Like I said, I actually don't mind Vanilla Ice, but yeah, it's sort of like, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see, how much of that, like I said, it's about itself, but okay, all right, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see if a lot, like I said, that'll probably be more sought after than the other stuff too. So that might get more people there than the games themselves. So we'll see what happens there. Now, on that note, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And make sure you give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. All right, so of course you catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, right here on Sports of Chicago on the YouTube channel and also the Facebook page as well. We're trying to get that Facebook page fixed. I don't know why it's but you can check it out on YouTube. It's probably the best place to go. It's all right there for you.
And also, too, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV.
Absolutely, and of course you can enjoy all the sports. Of course, you got the biscuits with the Tour Championship at East Lake, just outside Atlanta. Of course, our buddy Christine Manica's guy Victor Hovland is leading right now as we record this. So we'll see if he can hang on and win the $10 million annuity. Of course, also you have the Louis World Series. They're finishing up. Of course, you got Curacao and Chinese Taipei in the international final. Of course, you got Elsa going to California and Neville, Texas. They're going to be vying for a spot on the U.S. side. And of course, the Louis World Series final will be on Sunday on ABC. You can check that out as well. Also, too, of course, you got baseball. If you're interested, also to the WNBA. They're finishing up their season and all stuff on Premier League. All that stuff. So. Yeah, all type of sports coming up this weekend as we get, and also too, if you're interested, the last week of the preseason, the NFL. If you're interested, I don't know. Yeah. With that said, of course, stay cool, stay safe. First hit on Kansas, but Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we promise we're gonna have our divisional preview starting next week, hopefully. So, check that out too. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you guys Monday. Of course, we got a biggest coming up right off the bat at 12. Make sure you guys tune in.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go, 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 go.
Oh,